Thank you. Good morning, all. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your coverage throughout the year. We worked on getting the British Open up on the monitors. We didn't want you distracted, but I have it on my monitor up here. So if you want to know what's going on, let me know. I'm going to spend a little time talking about three topics today. One, a little bit of reflection on the last couple of years and all that's gone on in intercollegiate athletics. A little bit about Big 12 initiatives that we have undertaken over the last year and going forward. And then the third is, of course, the football season. Before we get going, I want to just take a minute to wish my colleagues, Britton Banowski and Mike Slive, well. You all know them, and they're both leaving their positions for different reasons, but they are two of the really terrific people, great leaders, and wonderful gentlemen in the business. And so I want to wish them both well. And having Greg Sankey come in as one of the leaders in our business is certainly a very positive thing too. So I wish him well. This year has been interesting, challenging. It certainly was a wild football season last year and ended in a way that was hard for us to accept, but it is what it is, and we felt like we had a terrific football season last year. A lot has happened over the last 24 to 30 months, and probably first among those things is the autonomy work that has been accomplished. The 5 high visibility conferences now have a lot more control over our fate. There is obviously wide speculation on what the agenda is and what kinds of untoward things we might do with intercollegiate athletics, but the fact is we really have some issues and some challenges that we need to have a little more control over. We feel like our 5 conferences are in large measure the face of what the public sees as intercollegiate athletics. We certainly bring a lot of equity to the processes and to the competition, and so we feel like that's an appropriate step, and it was accomplished almost as it was laid out. The new council is in place, the new board is in place, the subcommittees are now in place. My involvement is going to be mostly with the Football Oversight Committee, but we have some issues that are still before us. The issues of transfers and transfer waivers were among the outstanding issues that the steering committee of presidents did not deal with. They tossed that back to the new governance system along with a consideration of our enforcement environment. And those 2 initiatives are still ongoing, but we've made progress in both of them. As you look at the things that are really significant about the last couple of years, the college football playoff is really a remarkable thing. There have been many who have advocated for it for well, decades probably, if not many years. I think there are probably those who disagree with current format. Generally speaking, 3 out of 4 Americans think it's a big improvement over the BCS. Most think that we ought to go bigger, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon. I think that we really are settling the outcome of college football. We sought to keep the postseason strong. We sought to enhance the month of September from a competitiveness standpoint, and we wanted to retain what we think is the best regular season in all of sports, the months of October and November in college football. And I think all of those things were accomplished. More people watched the 2 semifinal games and the final game than any other sporting event in the history of cable television. It was a big success. And I say that given the disappointment that I already noted earlier. I think more than anything else, we've improved the lives of student athletes. I think moving to the full cost of attendance, to multi-year grants, to degree completion grants, transitional health care, the opportunity for various meals programs, the lot in life of student athletes has improved dramatically over the past 2 years, and I think it'll continue to improve going forward. It ought to always be our priority. The other thing that is going to be happening, the work has largely been done, and the implementation date is August 1st of 2016, and that is the implementation of the new academic standards and initial eligibility standards. It mandates more core classes. It mandates a higher grade point average to be immediately eligible. It will bring us a better prepared college student and student athlete. I think that it will call upon students to undertake that preparation earlier and to put themselves in position. I think all of these things that I mentioned have been big steps forward for college athletics, and the reason I mention it is because I think it's very easy to spend our time doing nothing but looking forward, and the fact is much has been accomplished in the last 2 or 3 years, and in fact I think our forums that the Big 12 has hosted have been a big part of shaping that dialogue and shaping that agenda. We have done 3 forums with 5 separate panels, some of the real thought leaders in the entire intercollegiate athletics environment. We are committed to doing more of them. They are not scheduled at the present time, but I think you can expect that we'll do at least one more during this year, and perhaps more than that. We have tried to make them issue specific. We don't want to do them just to be doing them, but when we have things to talk about, we want to get people who disagree in their vantage point and get them in a room and have a thorough vetting of it. I think it's made for some good theater, and it's made for a deeper understanding of the issues, and Bob Berta has and Ken Luce have led the efforts for us on the forums, and they've done a great job with it. Essentially, what we have arrived at, I think, in the last couple of years is a refocusing of the principles that should be guiding intercollegiate athletics within the framework of higher education. Raising initial eligibility standards and better preparing the student athlete, putting student athlete needs ahead of other financial considerations, continuing to teach teamwork and leadership and time management and perseverance and resiliency are all things that we really believe in. And yet there are lots of opportunities to be cynical about our stated principles and what appears to be actions that are inconsistent with those principles. I want to show you a couple of quick video vignettes that we're going to be running during the course of the season that I think one of them is a football 30-second spot, and the other one is a more student-athlete centric 30-second spot. But our goal in higher education and intercollegiate athletics, despite all the noise around it, is to help kids graduate and succeed in college and in life. Whether you buy that or not, that's why I've been in this business as long as I have. Foundationally, I think that's where most of my colleagues are too. And so let's run the 2 videos, and then we'll get back to additional comments.
Immerse yourself in the nation's most exciting college football. Explosive offenses, aggressive defenses, where hard-hitting action meets the best fans in the top venues. Classic rivalries with no divisions. In the Big 12 Conference, we determine our champion on the field. 10 teams, 9 games, and every game matters.
An athletic scholarship extends way beyond athletics. Many of today's athletes would never be able to attend college without an athletic scholarship. Today, 1 in 5 student athletes are first-generation scholars. Student athletes graduate at a higher rate than the rest of the student bodies, and they graduate with less debt. Athletic scholarships are second only to the GI Bill in providing access to a college education. The Big 12 Conference, making champions for life.
You'll see a lot of the Champions for Life moniker in the months ahead. Our staff will be doing 100 to 150 stories throughout the course of the year on student athletes. I want to reiterate that 1 out of every 5 is a first-generation student athlete, and a first-generation student. That's really remarkable. Athletics continues to be the best source of opportunity for a lot of kids that have never had access to college. And so you'll hear a lot about Champions for Life. You'll see a lot of it. We will tag a good deal of what we do during the coming year around that slogan. And you'll see it in a wide variety of formats. You'll see it in our 30-second spots during our games, but you'll also see it in longer formats in conjunction with a number of our media partners. And so there are a number of ways in which we are going to enunciate the message, but the short message is these are students. They are not employees, and it's that simple. Specific to football and the larger football environment, we've got a lot of work to do, and I say that from the chairmanship of the Football Oversight Committee. There's a lot that's right about the game, and you'll hear a lot that's right about the game in the hours today and tomorrow. But the fact is, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do around time demands. We have a lot of work to do around the recruiting environment, signing date, contact windows, oversigning, transfers. There are growing concerns about the summer environment, the 7-on-7 leagues, the camps environment, and the recruiting processes that go along with that. We have a good deal of work to do to become a little more conversant from a rule standpoint on the impact of technology. Obviously, the world has changed since we did a full rebuilding of how we communicate with student athletes. The growth and stability of the game is going to be a continuing and ongoing subject, because although there are almost 800 schools in divisions 1, 2, and 3 playing college football, 70,000 college football players, the numbers in Pop Warner and the other developmental programs are down 15% year over year each of the last 4 years. There are some troubling signs, and mostly those signs are around safety issues, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Relative to Big 12 football, we continue to remain very strong. Last year we were 95% capacity at a time when some areas of national attendance are declining. I don't know that the college football game has ever been any more popular than it is right now. I think the aspirations of the college football playoff were in large measure realized, and they reflected themselves in lots of people watching games, especially during those last 5 weeks when it seemed like every weekend was an elimination game of some sort. But having said that, as a league, we got left out. We need to be in a constant improvement mode. We need to play better, and we need to do what we can to get better in every single way. This year we've undertaken some initiatives that I think will help us to get better in ways that are all around the competitive aspects of it. Obviously that resides mostly with coaches and student athletes. But beyond that, we think we have had a tremendous officiating environment, and we think our games are fairly contested. I think Walt Anderson is the best coordinator in all of college athletics, and we have been innovative through his work in managing the pace of the game and bringing on an 8th official, which is now the standard for the game. I think it's certainly reflective of the pace of the game and the speed with which teams like to play. But we undertook an off-season officiating review that included coaches, directors of football operations, athletic directors, and others, because we felt like we wanted to get better. If we weren't optimal, we wanted to do what we could to improve. It's always a daunting task to take something that is exceedingly good and try and make it better, and I think we've accomplished that. I think the process was very good. We reported out to our coaches and our ADs in the spring, and I think the confidence level is higher than it's ever been. I think that the understanding among all the parties is better than it's ever been, and I think it positions us very well to go into this football season. We also undertook a sportsmanship initiative in the off-season led by Ian McCaw at Baylor and a small group of ADs and others. We have had some concerns about inappropriate chants in our venues with mostly students, but to a lesser extent others in the stadium. We've had some recent situations of fan misconduct, and we've had some issues with court storming and field storming and the like. We have engaged people on campus in order to take care of the first two that I mentioned, and relative to court storming, I think, and field storming, we're taking a little different approach than others. We are choosing to manage it rather than prohibit it, and that is a daunting task. There isn't any doubt about it. We think that properly managed, those kinds of celebrations can be a lot of fun. If you've got a football stadium that's got a 8-foot wall around it, you're going to have to take some special precautions to make sure people aren't jumping off of it and hurting themselves. More than anything else, it's up to the home management to manage the game environment, and first and foremost among that is getting the officials and the teams and the coaches and the participants in the event safely off the field and to their locker rooms, and making sure that they can safely and efficiently dispatch their responsibilities within the game environment. But beyond that, home management can do what they want to do. They can, as long as they manage it in a sports-like manner and they ensure the safety of the participants and the officials, we're going to take a wait-and-see approach on it. I do have broad prerogative in terms of reprimands and fines and a full array of considerations that will allow us to manage it if we disagree that it hadn't been managed properly on campus. But we think that sportsmanship is a really important element of what we do. We also believe that the best parts of college athletics and the things that really differentiate us from other kinds of athletics is the tradition and the historical rivalries and the regularity of competition and all those things that go along with it. While I was at Stanford, I met a guy by the name of Bob Williams. Bob is now 94 years old, and his time is largely taken up working on sportsmanship initiatives on a nationwide basis. Bob's a Navy grad. He was the head of the Corps of Cadets at one time, and he's all about traditions. And he and I worked together to do some things with regard to the Cal-Stanford game, where the teams stayed out on the fields and stayed out for each other's alma maters, and they had a post-game congratulatory ceremony and some of those kinds of things. And you know, there were those who thought it was sort of quaint and old school, but the more I've thought about it, the more I realize that a lot of those kinds of things are falling by the wayside, and they are really what distinguish the collegiate experience from the professional experience or some other experiences. And so, you know, I think they may be old school ideas, but I think one of the things we haven't done as well as we should have in intercollegiate athletics is we haven't differentiated ourselves for what it is. People don't come back to college football games because of the sports competition exclusively. They come back for the college experience, and that's a differentiation that has in some measure gotten lost along the way. The other thing that we have spent a lot of time on, and it's first and foremost in all of our minds, and that is player safety. We've made some rule changes. We've made some officiating changes. We have spent a lot of time on protocols for return to play and return to learn because they're not the same thing. You may start feeling good enough to be out walking around and maybe exercising, but you're not clear-headed enough to be back in the classroom. And those differentiations and determinations can only be made by medical professionals. And we also are spending a lot of time trying to participate in the research that goes into subconcussive impacts and the importance of repetitive use injuries, because there is some evidence that there is concern not just on that concussion that you get during the game or during practice, but the cumulative effect of helmet-to-helmet contact over a long period of time. And so we have put in place a rule in the Big 12 that gives unchallengeable authority and prerogative to the medical professionals. You may have remembered that at the NCAA convention last year, we opposed the national rule that put in place the stipulations around concussions because we didn't think it went far enough. Well, we have also taken another step that we don't, because we don't think the national rule goes far enough. And the national rule is 3 incidents of helmet-to-helmet full contact with live tackling and the like 3 times a week, including a game. 3 times including the game, or a scrimmage if you didn't play in the game. We have adopted, our ADs just adopted this, that we will go with a 2 contact per week rule. That will be the game plus 1 other day of full contact, or a scrimmage for those that didn't play in the game, and 1 other day of full contact. And so we believe it's the right step, and we hope it will become the national rule. But even if it doesn't, we think that that's the right way to conduct our practices. And so it's another way in which we're a little different, but our ADs have felt strongly about it, and our coaches have supported it, and that's our rule moving forward. Relative to the Big 12 2015 season, there isn't a lot of suspense right now. TCU and Baylor got all the first place votes, and everybody sees them as the strength of the league. They also dominated the preseason individual honors. But just a reminder, since 2009, we've had 6 different schools out of our 10 win the conference championship. We've got 7 great bowl partnerships. This is the first year of what started out as the Champions Bowl, and now will be contested between us and the SEC in the Sugar Bowl. And so that ought to be a great celebration for us. We are the only league that plays a full round robin. We go into this year again with no championship game. The deregulation process is moving its way through the system. I fully expect that the postseason rules regarding having to have 12 members and regarding having to have 2 6-team divisions and play round robin in the division, I think those will be deregulated. I think we'll have the prerogative at some point in time to consider and implement a playoff game if we choose to. But our ADs have been very thoughtful about it, and our CEOs have been very thoughtful about it, and we've put in place a tiebreaker that will ensure that not only do all of our schools play each other, but the title isn't going to be decided by who you didn't play. And so whether we end up with a championship game down the road or not, we aren't going to have one this year. And we think that full round robin is the right way to determine it. The last 4 years, the last day of the season, our champion was decided. In fact, just as a reminder, the 2 highest ranked teams that met on Championship Saturday last year were number 5 Baylor and number 9 Kansas State. In terms of rankings, it was the best matchup on the board. Some of you I know have November 27th circled for a Baylor TCU game, but I can assure you there'll be a lot of great games between now and then. And aspirationally, we don't want to just be in the playoff. I think our league has always been about aspiring to win national championships. We were 2-5 in the bowl games last year. We had a couple of really good showings, but that's not satisfactory. We want to win all of those bowl games. We've got a great bowl lineup, and there isn't any reason we can't be competitive in every one of those games. And in addition, eventually we'd like to lead the nation in graduation rates as well. We can't let that get lost in the process, because in the end, the opportunity to come in, have a great collegiate experience, and move on with your life is really what it's all about. Less than 1% of our football players nationally, of course it's higher in our league, but nationally it's 1%, ever get a chance to be on a roster. And if they do, that opportunity lasts about 3.3 years. We are about higher education. We are about helping kids move from 18-year-old adolescence to 22-year-old adulthood, and in the process get a great education and have a terrific athletics experience. And so we're excited about the coming year. We'll end up with some amazing games. I think the reason college football is so exciting is because it's so unpredictable. And so I'm excited that this day is here. I'm excited for the first weekend of the football season, and I'm excited for camps to get started, and I think it'll be another terrific season. So let me stop there and address your questions.